So now they have to create a reason why we need all of these children. Because remember, they already signed a deal with the devil under Eisenhower in the military-industrial complex in 1954. Remember that. So they already been experimenting on niggas. And that's when Twilight Zone came out. That's when Water Worlds came out. That's when the science fiction kicked Jules Verne, all H.G. Wells. See? They priming you. They priming you with this bullshit. So eventually they get with it and set up the circumstance to do another ritual to bring him in. They can't do it because so they give them the demon or whatever, gives them the knowledge, right? But the knowledge is given that the demon gives them is only giving them knowledge to create more shit to bring more demons. That's how CERN got here. That's how got here. That's how all this shit got here. You know what I'm saying? That's how the quantum computers and stuff got here. Right. So they gotta prime you. So what they started to do was they started to create the human trafficking situation through CIA, which again is ran by a bunch of warlocks, right? And devil worshippers. And they got them to now set up the human trafficking thing for the children through the orphanages. Mm-hmm. One of the biggest ones that they got a devil named Michael Aquino to get in there, and he set up shop at a place called the Presidio, and they utilized all of the underground tunnels that had been there for centuries to be able to funnel the kids. And they created underground tunnels that went to at least 50 different daycares. Yeah, look it up. This is fact. About it with Sean Connery. What? Yeah. It's a wrap. So this is why this is going on. Then they got you can go. You got the milk carton kids. Remember the kids on the they're missing. Yeah. Right, but at the same time they had the milk carton kids. They also had ads where they had all of these celebrities and people with milk mustaches. Remember? Yes. Yeah. Got milk. Yeah. Because this is how they do it. Because remember, the children to them are goyim. Goyim is cattle. You milk the cattle. Therefore, all of the stuff that they've been doing ritualistically was them being able to create a legal way of using the children. And so this is where ACS came from. This is where family court comes from. This is where all of this stuff. Because all of that creates the substance for them. Well, is that adrenal pump for that? Is adrenal pump a real thing, or is that like a fake, like Hollywood thing they made up to still talk about something that exists, but not really, but kind of like make a joke of it, like make not a joke of it, but like they have to tell you what they're doing, but they can't tell you exactly what they're doing, Yes. So it might not be called adrenochrome, it might be something else. No, it is that. It is. They'll call it. They have different names for it. They call it adrenochrome. They call it chromatica. Tyler the Creator's new album is called Chromacopia. You understand? Google's server. The server is called Adrena, and then Chrome is the system, right? Mm-hmm. So they've been using again the symbols. Remember, I told you the children using the symbols to justify all of their witchery. So why do you think the Hollywood people, like the Black Hollywood people, like a Tyler the Creator, would be putting out a thing called Adreno, blah blah blah, da 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 da? Is it because they've joined the order? And then he's doing it. But then look, he's doing it. Not to cut your wisdom. If you look at the promotion for it, he's doing it on a green shipping container. He's performing on a green shipping container, the same way Kendrick was performing in the shipping containers. Why? Because the shipping containers is where they traffic the children through. Remember the boat that crashed into the bridge? Yeah. Yeah, they didn't talk about the fact that what the people was hearing was all of the people screaming as the cargo containers was falling into the water. People have been fired from the dock workers. The dock workers want higher pay to keep quiet of all of the people they hear inside the containers being trafficked back and forth.
What? Oh my God. Oh my God.
So he telling you. But see, this is what I'm saying about these Freemason shit. Like, Kendrick Lamar is not a revolutionary. If they gotta give you symbols, if they gotta show you a symbol instead of just telling you, that means they down with it.
Yep. Yeah. 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 They gotta hide it.
I'm telling you exactly what they doing.
You gotta decode it, break it down.
Yeah. Like, I'm telling you, I'm not dancing. I'm not putting in a video. I'm not writing it. I'm telling you, this is what I see them doing based upon the research I've done. And I'm telling you, you can go online and look up everything I'm saying, and it's true. Not because I'm right, because it's right. And it's right to be right. Because we live amongst so many who have accepted the left-hand path that we have now reached a critical mass stage where I believe there may only be maybe 135 million people in the world. Everybody else is some sort of creature, some sort of robot, some sort of NPC, something else. They're not even real people anymore.
They don't even have any soul, no soul, nothing. Like, this just...
They're created. They create these people now in labs and shit, and they show us all the time, and we keep acting like it's a joke, but this is what they're doing. And these people are inferior. You can see it. You can see the physiology of certain people today, and you can see this is not a human being. This is something else. Because a human being wouldn't do things like that to itself.
You know what? Yeah. I mean, and I'm seeing a lot of them in our race. I'm not gonna lie. A lot of these women that are out here, it's like, when did this start happening?
Because they have now switched from an Eve program to a Lilith program. The goal for you as a female is to become the breeding ground for whatever type of mutation they want to bring about. So they have to disassociate you from your body. That's what the weaves and the BBLs and the nail. They say the average woman puts at least 156 chemicals on her body a day.
Wow.
A day. Okay? So that's just makeup and stuff. That's not even what they eating. That's not even what they not thinking about because they can't touch their head. Their central nervous system shut down. So they already done with that. They want by 2035, they're saying right now, original so-called black women is 56% obesity rate.
Mm-hmm.
They also are the number one rising attendance to prison now.
To prison?
They have now taken there's going to be more black women in prison in about 2-3 years.
But you based on violence or based on
based on the deterioration of the image of the original woman, because the more they allow themselves to be depicted as such, the more they will go to jail. And we know this is true because we saw this happen with the so-called black male. The more he emulated Nino Brown instead of Malcolm X, the more they went to jail.
You know what? And the more we emulate prostitutes and it's gotten so bad. It's strippers and prostitution and all that stuff like that, and selling your body. I remember it was not cool to be a stripper. Now it's like that's like the whole thing. People want to be. They want to look like strippers. They want to walk around looking like a stripper.
Yes. And every female that has given to you, that is presented to you to accept that identity is a witch, is somebody who is doing the exact opposite of what they're telling you to do. Every one of them. So, like I said, they're following the Lilith program because they're going by the idea of trying to turn the real woman into a goddess. But a goddess, under their understanding of a goddess, is a holy prostitute. And they base this on Lilith. That's the first one. That's the ultimate one they praying to. So they're using Lilith as a symbol of strength and rebellion, because as Adam's first wife, she was the one that rebelled and decided to stay in the post-Eden world. And if Adam wanted her, he had to go to her, and then the children that they created were of that ilk and of that time, right? But they were not of the same blood and style that Eve was. See? So the legend goes that God told Lilith to come back to the garden and be with him and be with Adam. She rebelled. He said that I would then slay 100 of your children every sunrise if you don't, right? Because this is how those entities would get down with each other. If you look at all these old gods, they always was fighting with one another based on ego and who was sleeping with who. That then got transliterated to all of the people on earth that was now living like that, who at the time were bicambrial. So the same way I'm talking to you, they could hear these things that they would pray to and talk to in their mind because they was real. You understand? So you're hearing yourself, and then you're hearing Apollo talk to you or Zeus talk to you, right? And then you're given energy to do certain things that, based upon you thinking that this is the voice, what's happening, you're giving it more glory, therefore giving it more life, you see, in the physical plane that it has already transliterated from and not supposed to be in, because it never was supposed to exist in the first place. But all of this is traced back to Lilith. So because Lilith did that, right, Adam was then left and then went back with Eve. Lilith's children kept dying, so they stopped going out in the sun. Because they couldn't go out in the sun, right, they started to deteriorate and go into the recesses and become thin. They become gaunt, pale, right? And eventually they're saying that this is where the vampire shit come from. So think of Lilith as Akasha, i.e. Aaliyah, in the movie Queen of the Damned. You see what she was doing? That's the type of so-called black.
And isn't that crazy that she, when she started to do that more and start to do more kind of lesbianic
stuff, look at the preparation they gave her ritualistically up until that role, and then she out of here.
Queen of the Damned.
Who was she with before that? The Pied Piper, right?
Right.
All of the sex rituals, all of the stuff they was dealing with. Missy, all of them knew. I was watching an interview. Timberland was talking about, oh yeah, man, I was watching her sing, and even though she was 16, I was in love with her. I was like, what? What? Right. But it makes sense because they all like that, bro.
But how old was Timberland when she was 16?
He was like 23.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
24.
I never understood how those parents would let their children just go to New York by themselves.
Because they with it. They with the program. They Grand Dames, Easter Stars, all of that type of shit.
So you think it's a bloodline of people that just allow their kids to be just sent to the slaughterhouse?
Yeah. Like
Justin, what's his name? Justin Bieber's family probably already knew that he probably would go up there and get handled by us.
Joe Jackson, Whitney Houston, mother. Joe Jackson, Michael Jackson, father. Whitney Houston, mother. You can just go down the list. This is what they do. They ransom themselves by their children because they have no faith in their divine creation. Because once you become evil, you can't create nothing. Evil can't create nothing. It can only copy what good do and make it whack. That's why Hollywood whack now. That's why all movies suck now. That's why all music is whack now. Nothing is good. So
they have to recreate the movies that came back when movies were good and redo them.
They can't. That's why, because they're stuck in the loop. They're done. The timeline is ended. That's why you keep seeing stuff from the 70s, 80s, 90s, 60s, 40s, 50s, because they can't create anything new. Because the quantum computer has reached the level where it's gone to parallel realities. And in the parallel realities, they lost. They lose everywhere. They can't go nowhere. They can't get out the dome. They can't go underground. They can't go into the other dimensions. They can't do nothing. So they're going to try to mess up everything before it's over. And when I say they, right now I'm talking about there's a war between the Brotherhood of Death and the Brotherhood of the Eagles. And under that, you have the black nobility families, the WEF, the papal nobility, the banker class, the fake noble class. Like they're switching everything before your eyes.
Here's a question too. What about aliens and the people that's underneath the water? What about the I know I'm getting out there, but I'm
the same people I'm talking about. These so-called aliens, demons, are the same thing. They're interdimensional beings. You have the interdimensional beings, the ones that transfer from the fourth dimension into the third and then back out to the fourth or the fifth, right? Mm-hmm. Then you got the inter-terran beings, or the extraterrestrials, meaning they're coming from an extra portion of the terrestrial plane. Okay. See what I'm saying? So that's talking about stuff or beings that exist in like pocket dimensions, beings that exist within the earth, people that exist in the underground cities like in California and New York and Philly and Denver. Then you got the ones that live in the mountains, like Cheyenne Mountain. Iron Mountain is the world's biggest suppository in the world. That's where everybody store all of their stuff. So all y'all people, artists, you want to know where your masters is at, they all in Iron Mountain. And it's in there with the Ark of the Covenant and everything else they got up in there. Corporations pay billions of dollars a year to house their stuff there. What? And that's in the same area that they filmed all of the Hollywood movies at. Because all of that was under the military jurisdiction of what they call Operation Wonderland, where they brought all of the children of the military, the second, third generation of those military children of those descendants of Operation Paperclip, meaning these Nazis, their children's children, they put them into work as the 60s rock bands. So all of the rock bands, from Deep Purple to Buffalo Springfield to the Beatles to Crosby, Stills and Nash, any of them, all of them were government children, the children of military officers, like George Van Morrison, who was the head of the Doors. His father was the admiral who started the Vietnam War under the false flag event called the Gulf of Tonkin. These are facts. But in interviews at the time, he said his father was dead. He said he was Cherokee and shit.
Right, he did. So, right.
Yeah.
And you know, and I heard that there actually is a CIA division just for Hollywood itself, that there is an actual Hollywood. Because if you think about Central Intelligence Agency, so of course it's going to have, when you have all those movies that have anything to do with military, it has to be run through that agency to make sure that whatever they're representing looks a certain way, that you don't put the wrong information in. Whatever. Because
they are the death cult. They're the big death cult. And then you have the other one. They're just a version of the SS. Remember, I told you, all of the Nazis, they brought over 450,000 of these niggas over here, including Hitler.
What? They went to South America, right? Into Venezuela somewhere?
Took them out of Germany. They put them in the rat lines. They got the Vatican to help. The Vatican opened up the churches. They smuggled them out the underground tunnels from the Vatican churches that they dug out. And they brought them from Germany to Italy, from Italy to Spain, from Spain to Argentina, from Argentina to Brazil, from Brazil to Colombia, from Colombia into America. And they filtered them out into the Midwest, made sure they all had government jobs, made sure that they all had government stipends, made sure all of their children went to the right schools and stuff. And then in that, they all went to work for NASA, CIA, FBI, everything else. So the whole operation was funded by Prescott Bush. And this is what they've been doing. This is all what they call the black arts. This was a system of statecraft and espionage mixed with alchemy and warlock intention by a dude named John Dee, who was the head necromancer or sorcerer for Queen Elizabeth when she converted to Druidism. And then his code name was 007. And he is the founder of what eventually would become MI5 or MI6, of which Ian Fleming, who wrote James Bond, was the agent. So a lot of that stuff that you saw in those movies was actually real shit because Ian Fleming himself was an agent. He was a part of a secret death squad called the League of Ungentlemanly Warfare.
Wow.
It's real shit. So that's what I'm saying. So and then what kept all of this together was the Freemason societies working with each other, against each other, whatever. So there's a book you can get called Agent 666. Another book you can get called Hitler Was a British Agent. Another book called The Forgotten Cause of the Civil War. There's another one called The Encyclopedia of Espionage. It's a real good one called Weird Scenes in the Canyon. That'll show you, prove what I'm saying about all of these rock bands and stuff. That's why you don't hear rock music and stuff no more. Because the other side of that was that none of them niggas played instruments. All of those instruments was played by original people.
Right.
Given little side deals.
What was they called? What was that group called? It was that they were known for all of the music back then. It was the Brothers or something Brothers.
Yeah, like Milli Vanilli. They were like that. A lot of the bands was just like that. They all was like that. Matter of fact, 90% of the bands out today is like that. That's why you don't see no bands. Like when we was coming up, you had hip hop, you had modern pop, you had rock, you had R&B, you had jazz, you had all of that. Once they created playlists, they segregated your music. They put your music under segregation. So you can't even listen to nothing new because once you create the playlist, it's only going to keep playing the shit in the playlist. So unless you type something new in, it's going to lock you in to this type of music when you used to just be able to listen to whatever you want. Now, you can't even touch the damn music.
They have a program director. You know what I'm saying? The program director in the radio.
Who worked for the corporation, who was the stooge for the corporation, who was there to push the CIA agenda. That's who they would tap. So they either going to tap somebody, whoever got the post to put the message directly out there, that's usually the agent. You understand? So that's why none of the so-called black movements work, because black can't be a movement in the traditional sense because of the fact that under the present spell of the word, it's locked in to a false history matrix that people have tied themselves into voluntarily by then creating a spatial reality in their mind that at one point in their history they was getting whipped and beat and killed, and that is actually happening to them today. You understand? That's a psychological program.
Yes, it is.
You're not being whipped today.
But I've never been chained and none of that, so why am I
don't know. You never met anybody who ever went through anything like that outside of getting their ass whipped and shit by their parents. You ain't never met nobody that's been hung and all of that. You ain't never seen a KKK rally in real life. You ain't never had a burning cross on your lawn. You ain't never been in situations like that.
So, they showed it to us through Hollywood movies and put it in our mind.
When in actuality, you were a prisoner of war. And those people that you see that they show you as being hung and burned, them people was not sharecroppers. Them people was not regular nigga slaves or whatever. These were the nobles. These were the kings of the neighborhood, the emperors, the doctors, the lawyers, the international exporters, the niggas who was running the international watermelon industry that we had, that was running the world. We was making billions off of that. How you think oranges wound up in Europe? How you think coffee wound up in Egypt? How you think cocaine wound up in Egypt? Like, where do you think this thing happened from? How is it that corn was found in China? Where was they getting that from? They was getting that from us through the Song Dynasty. Because in 752 AD, we took over China too. Then we kept going into India. And under the Sindhi Empire, we ruled that. Then through the Mauryan Empire, we ruled that. Then through the Mauryan Empire, we ruled that. Then we went into South Asia. In South Asia, we was called, the god was called Sambo. And the people was called the Mons. Like Jamaican be like, hey, Mon, what's up, Mon? This is them. This is the Mons. The Mon people who are part of the Nagar culture, part of the Anglo-Wat Barubador culture. If I was to take one of them from that time and put him on the corner and put some Jordans and a jean suit on him, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference from him today, you know what I'm saying, and your brother. Because they look the same. But we don't know that. We think that the people in Japan, the way they look now is how they always look. No, they didn't. Because at one time, they wouldn't even, if you even called somebody from that place Japanese, they would cut your head off. That place is called their home. That place is called their home. But them people wiped out their Moorish culture, which was the samurai culture of that period. Because those samurais traced their lineage back to the Jomon people. And it was said that in order for you to be considered a samurai, you had to have black blood. So when you see them put dreads and shit in their hair and perm their hair 16 times to get an afro, this is them trying to regraft themselves back into us, while at the same time holding on to the fact that they know the history aspects of it that we don't. Also the fact that it gives them a condescending level of infatuation that they can entertain, because we don't know. But once you know the game of the dude playing 3-card money, he either got to shut the game down or he got to cut you in. So it's all on you to figure out what you're going to do. But if you think flashing a bunch of hand signs to these niggas and all of that is going to get you anywhere, these niggas been flashing hand signs with each other, clandestine and knocking each other out for hundreds of years, and it ain't got our people nowhere since. So maybe we need to do something else. Maybe we need to consolidate our identity and declare that we are something outside of an artificial concept like Aboriginal, which is a designation. The only Aboriginal people that can be considered an Aboriginal nation is the Aboriginal nation in Australia. Outside of that, if you're calling yourself Aboriginal, that is a designation that you are defining, but that does not define you as a direct individual. It just says what type of individual you are. So you can't just walk around and be like, oh yeah, I'm Aboriginal. Like, okay, what is that? What Aboriginal language you speak? English? Okay, see, you're going to jail. That's what I'm saying. Like, it don't work like that. You got to know what you're talking about. Same thing. You want to be in a understanding that when you leave this place, you're just seen as an American, no matter what you are. When you're here, domiciled in the States, you have to define what type of American you are. So we happen to be Moorish Americans. See what I'm saying? And in that then defines our origin going back to Moors, not ish to mean like, which is a pedestrian way to look at the suffix, but it is actually ish to denote a nationality, which is the first definition in the definition of the word or the idiom ish. So when you say you're more ish, you're defining that you are connected to a nationality of people who are defined as Moors. And then when we look at what those people are, we can look at a vast array. But then there are some people who, as Moorish Americans, only identify as Moorish Americans vis-a-vis through the Moorish Science Temple of America. That's cool too. You have other Moors who are more secular and don't identify with that, who see problems in the temple based upon the schism and all of that. And there are elements of their argument that is right as well. Then there are other Moors who are more on the, like you said, the law aspect of it, right? But it doesn't mean that as a Moor, you can't circumnavigate all of those, because all of those are what make up the foundation of the Moors. So it's not like Prophet Noble Drew Ali invented Moors. He didn't do that. Moors existed before him. We have documentation. You can get a book called Morocco as It Is, written by Budget Meekin, and they're referring to the fact that the Sultan of America gave Queen Elizabeth an elephant that was bigger than from America, that was bigger than the one that the Sultan of Africa gave her. They referred to themselves as Moorish Americans, and they was even singing the Battle Hymn of the Republic as Moorish Americans. Muslims. See, also Muslim is an ancient Delaware word that was adapted and refined to accommodate the new Orientalist vibration that these Freemasons was bringing into the lexicon of the day through other Freemasons like Mr. Webster, who helped write the dictionary. You know what I'm saying? These words existed before all of these people, but they recontextualized them to fit them.
Here's a question.